You now tuned in to the Gumptown Podcast. I'm your boy Doug B. We ain't got nothing to talk about, but we got something to talk about. Let's go. Good people. Welcome back to the Gumptown Podcast, episode 77. I'm your boy Doug B. If you tuned in to this podcast, thank you for your time and your attention. I really appreciate you giving this podcast a shot. Today's guest, he is the founder and owner of the King's Canvas. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I'm sure you all will be inspired by his story. Let's chop it up with Kevin King. Kevin, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good, man. Doing well.
Glad to hear that, man. First things first. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to chop it up with me a few minutes. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you for having me.
Yes, sir. Of course, we're here to talk about the King's Canvas, but before we go there, let's get to know the man behind the brand. What's your story?
My story. So I grew up doing art. I'm from Mobile, Alabama. Grew up doing art all of my life. 17 years old. Was about to graduate high school, and I was known for being an art guy. So at this time, I had, won national competitions, placed in state competitions, in a local competition. So I was known as an art guy. But for some reason, in 1996, upon graduation, well-meaning adults in my life basically said, "Hey, you need to pick a real major, get a real job. You can't do this art thing as a career. You need to figure out how to do that as a hobby, but still focus on your career." So I went to Tuskegee University and majored in mechanical engineering instead, trying to figure out how to utilize my art until and it didn't take me long to realize that it didn't give me the same creative freedom that we desire as artists, right? It was restrictive. And so I did that for a while. And after 17 years, man, I didn't do any art at all, right? Because I just thought it was a waste of time. And after prompting of my wife and my daughter at 35, and this was in 2013, I ended up being gifted some art supplies for Father's Day by them. And my wife's words to me were, "I'm taking away your excuses for not creating." And that kind of opened up a door for me, a creative door to be able to, re-explore just that creative side that I had that I honestly forgotten about. I suppressed it. And it was awakened, just by me getting the gift of art supplies. And so that was basically it, man. And I quickly realized in Montgomery that it wasn't really a place for Black visual artists. We were underground, but there were no opportunities available. There was no access to exhibitions and shows and any type of art opportunity that can gain us exposure or to create economic opportunities. And so that's how the King's Canvas came into play. I wanted to provide opportunity and access for underdeveloped and underexposed artists. I'm the type of cat who really don't like trying to infiltrate people's circles who don't want me in them. I thoroughly believe in us building our own platforms to be able to facilitate the opportunities that our people need, especially those who are marginalized. So that's it in a nutshell, bro.
Wow, man, that's a powerful story, man. Appreciate that breakdown and that transparency. So let's go back a little bit. I know you said you came in Mobile. What was the upbringing like in Mobile? And is it much different than Montgomery?
Mobile is it's crazy because, being on the Gulf Coast, the culture in Mobile was different. My mom and dad divorced when I was about 9 months, and my dad moved to Montgomery. So I had an opportunity to live in Mobile, but to spend all of my summers and spring breaks growing up in Montgomery. And and I'm gonna just say this, man. I love Montgomery. Montgomery is my home now, so I mean this in no derogatory terms at all. But it always seemed like even back then that Montgomery was behind. Now I understand why, right? But it seemed like in a lot of ways, just from my vantage point and in the sphere of influence that I was in at the time in Montgomery, I didn't necessarily see progression. But of course, as a kid, you don't see everything. And even like now, we appear to lack progression at times. But then I'm like, yo, I know a whole group of us who are progressive. And most of them are from Montgomery. You understand what I'm saying? And so I think that the culture is different in a lot of ways. But I think due to what happened here during the civil rights movement, you look at the Great Migration. I ain't trying to get all deep with it, but when the Great Migration took place, racial terror still existing down here in both cities. But Montgomery being the city that was, especially due to our riverfront, due to like the slave market here, it was different. And I feel at some point, the rest of the nation just kind of passed us. You understand what I'm saying? They passed us because we were dealing with the day-to-day struggles of just surviving, right? Cats ain't have a whole lot of time to, rebel or to revolt or, to protest, right? That's why when Dr. King came in, he was looked at as a outside agitator by black elites in Montgomery. Some black elites. So,
right.
Like I said, I ain't trying to get too deep with it, but, on a basic level, I noticed simple stuff like when I was in Mobile, fifth grade, and I would visit Montgomery, I noticed the haircuts that they wore were haircuts that we wore back in the days when I was in the first grade. weird stuff like that. But I remember that because I remember having conversations with my older brother at the time, who was a student at Alabama State, and my older cousin, who was also a student at Alabama State. I'm in the fifth and sixth grade, and I'm asking questions. And especially when I got to the ninth grade and I started visiting my brother in college, I started asking questions like, wait a minute, man, they still wearing this up here? Or that dude still wearing that haircut? And so, I know that's silly, and I've never even uttered those words to anybody, let alone on the podcast. So I don't even know how this is going to go over.
Man, you good, Kevin. You ain't saying nothing derogatory, and everything you said spot on. I'm born and raised in the Gump, and we always been behind for reasons we all know why. Like, this city isn't about progression. It's slow on progression. It's all about sticking to the old times and
right. And yeah.
So it's
thankfully
all
there are a lot of us who are committed to Montgomery's progression. I have a lot of my Mobile people who are like, man, you've been away from Mobile in '98. You mean to tell me you ain't gonna never come back home and do anything that you're doing there? But I mean, Montgomery's home for me now, man. I've now lived here longer than I've lived in Mobile.
Wow. Nah, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now I've been here for what, 21 years consistently. Yeah.
Wow. It's powerful, man. So grew up in Mobile, finished high school in '96, and went on to Tuskegee University. Tell me about the HBCU experience from your perspective.
So my HBCU experience started when I was probably 9 or 10 years old, visiting. I went to my cousin's graduation in 1986, 86, 87 in Tuskegee. Arthur Coleman, he's a Q. And I got a chance to watch him graduate. I got a chance to watch the Q step on the air. And so going from that to my Uncle Shorty, who raised me in a lot of ways as a man, just taking me to a lot of the Magic City Classics and Bayou Classics and Tuskegee Homecoming. I grew up just seeing that and just being around that. And of course, watching the different world a lot. It's like my mind was conditioned to just to go to an HBCU. And so, being at Tuskegee was rich, man. Just history classes, just the culture and just kind of learning who you are. That was an argument back in the days before HBCU culture became popular nationally on whether or not HBCUs needed to be eradicated, whether or not they should just join PWIs. We didn't call them PWIs that time, but those discussions was centered around whether or not we actually need HBCUs and whether or not we were getting a real world experience. And I think at that time, a lot of us had come to terms with the fact that we just felt like this was the last line of defense for us as Black college students, because once we left HBCUs, we believed that it really prepared us to actually deal with the world in a real way, as opposed to dealing with a lot of the things that, our Black friends had to deal with who had PWIs, right? It literally trained and developed us. And a lot of our value and self-worth came from just being a part of these strong institutions with rich history that cultivated who we are as Black people.
Yes, sir.
So it was a dope experience, man.
Yes, sir. That's spot on, man. My HBCU experience was very similar. Like you said, to your point, a lot of our Black sisters and Black brothers that went to those PWIs, they more or less, they were just a number. But at the HBCUs, and it sounds like at Tuskegee, they ingrained this in you without you even realizing that, hey, you belong. No matter what room you
Right.
go in, you belong. You greatness, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. They sure did.
Yes, sir.
That that subconscious inferiority complex was definitely dealt with.
Oh
You
yeah, no
know,
doubt.
you go
No
through
doubt.
HBCU, man. You don't. I mean, I know everybody has their individual struggles, but with me, I mean, it was just the way I grew up. Period. But I think Tuskegee really cultivated and solidified the fact that, man, I ain't superior. I'm not inferior to anyone. I'm not superior to anyone,
Right,
but I'm
right.
definitely not inferior to anyone. You
Oh,
understand what
without
I'm saying?
question. No doubt
Yeah,
about it, man. And that's cool. You got the HBCU exposure as such a kid. So it was no doubt where you were going. You going to
yeah,
HBCU, no doubt.
definitely, definitely. I'm 44, bro. I grew up listening to Public Enemy, X Clan,
Right.
Bookbound Production, Poor Righteous Teachers. We grew up watching, the Cosby Show in a different world, and even Martin. They would have these HBCU sweaters on all of the time. Like it was
Mhm.
literally ingrained in our culture, bro. Just in our upbringing.
Yeah, and that's so true, man. I'm 35, so I'm a
Yeah.
decade behind you, and I just I remember watching Martin growing up, but when I got grown, I started looking back. I was like, Martin was really putting on for the HBCUs, man.
Yeah.
Like that
Right.
was cool.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So the King's Canvas, man. Let's talk about the King's Canvas. So I
Okay.
know you said in 2013 that's when you got reintroduced to art. You
Right.
received those gifts for Father's Day. So when
Right.
exactly was the King's Canvas? When did you find the company?
That was 2018. We became a 501c3. At the end of 2017, we were incorporated because this idea of the King's Canvas had been cultivated since maybe 2016 sometime, but 2017, um, we were incorporated and officially became a 501c3 March of 2018.
Okay,
So I guess
got it.
we're coming up on our 5th year.
Wow, congratulations, man. Hey, that's dope. That is dope.
Yep.
So whenever I have, so exactly what do you have going on over there at the King's Canvas?
All right. So it's a few things. So I kind of wanted to, the way I can break it down to you, bro, is the fact that I wanted to do what was done for me. My wife said, "Hey, I'm taking away your excuses, so I'm gonna give you art supplies." We have a lot of artists who are up and coming who were, just kind of starting out, who didn't have supplies. And so I said, "Yo, I'm gonna just start giving away art supplies like my wife gave me, just to take away people's excuses not to create." And the home that we live in at the time, she said, "Yo, I'm gonna just stick you in the middle of the corner, just keep it as clean as possible. But this is your studio area. You can do your art here." And I started finding out that artists didn't have studio space. So at the time, we doing work in the West Side. I'm working for another organization that I co-founded in Washington Park. And, I got a little studio and I gave people a space to create. I started teaching or taking entrepreneur classes from a good friend of mine, my business mentor, Boyd Stevens. He taught me all of these problem and solution business practices. And we started teaching that because we said, okay, if we artists who make bad business folks sometimes, we need to be able to possess skills in order to learn uh, best business practices when not only cases. And so for us, the King's Canvas is an art studio. People come there and they create, right? But we also have like this outdoor venue, performing arts venue, where we have a lot of performing artists that come out and do stuff in the spring and the fall. But the 30,000 foot view outside of us being a studio and providing entrepreneur classes and also having an outdoor performing arts venue and also connecting with people like Michelle Browder and Kalanja Gilchrist and people and others like that who host events that a lot of the artists who are affiliated with us can get can be a part of, so it can give them further exposure and opportunities. I'm into something called creative placemaking.
Mm.
Creative placemaking is basically when you use arts and culture as a conduit to address issues centered around community and economic development. And the way that goes is, the National Endowment of the Arts back in, I think it was 2007, 2008, they came out with this study that said in a larger metropolitan area that's ever had any economic progression, they attributed it to the arts 100%. Like the arts has always been a part of it. Now it's like, yo, if this is working all over the nation, why couldn't it work in a place like Montgomery and historically marginalized, economically distressed community like Washington Park? So what we did on site is we basically put up a mural that says "Welcome to Westside Montgomery," because we realized that there were no colorful, large-scale murals that tourists can come and say, "Hey, I just want to prove that I went to Montgomery by taking a picture in front of the sign." I said, what if we can actually utilize this as a strategy to activate the land while simultaneously beautifying this place so the residents in this neighborhood, my neighborhood, Washington Park, can further be proud of living in this neighborhood where they from, right? So when we did that, it immediately activated the land. I got phone calls from Kenesha Brown and others saying, "Hey, we want to have an event in that land that's adjacent to your building where the mural is." And I started asking questions why. And they said, "Well, we believe the mural looks good in pictures. It's a dope venue. This is a perfect spot. It's a lot of land, and we can have a good time there." And so the land was immediately activated. Another thing with creative placemaking says when you do that, business owners are not going to come on the scene because they know that they can have a sustainable business in that community. So I got approached by Fred and Anthony Brock, and he said, "Kevin, what do you think if we open up a literacy center right next to you, a coffee shop and bookstore? And some of our scholars at Valley Cross, they can work there. We can use it as a training space. We can use it as just a community space." And right now, they're moving right next door to me. They're renting space next door to me. And in the process of renovating this area, that's going to be a coffee shop and bookstore. And next to that, I can't name the restaurant that you don't want me to say, but there's a restaurant that's moving in adjacent to that. And so we've utilized the arts to not only allow people to rediscover a sense of creativity and purpose within themselves, but we've also used it to develop the community and get a community sense of pride, but to bring Black businesses back to the hood, as well as using it as a destination spot for tourists to come take a picture in front of our sign, spend a little money, and to bring some dollars back into our community so it can circulate in our community.
Wow,
So,
man.
in a nutshell,
No, I'm
that's
sorry.
what
I mean to cut you off. Go ahead, man.
No. I'm sorry. I was about to say, in a nutshell, that's a simple version. We focus on the person, but we also focus on the community and economic development by using arts as a conduit to address those issues. So reactivating or activating vacant and abandoned properties. There's a whole culture out there that says that needs to happen, right? We don't like abandoned buildings in our neighborhood. We don't like vacant lots in our neighborhood. So how creative can you be? How creative can we be and activate some sort of programs or initiatives that can activate this space so everyone wins? So that's what we're doing.
Wow, man, that's a great breakdown. I never really understood the power of art and the way you just broke it down, how the King's Canvas, what it's doing for the community, how it's just sparking that, bringing business back to the hood. Now that's amazing, man. And I just in here listening to your story and the fact that a dream was reignited 17 years later. So
yeah.
in terms of those people that didn't see your vision, do you ever think, and I know we shouldn't do what ifs, but I'm just curious to know, like, do you ever think what if you would have started this? Or were you even the person you needed to be in 96 to start this?
No, not this. Absolutely not. Now, on one end, I'm looking at the people who I know that were on the same line as I was as far as the artistic skill set. I probably would have been a photorealism artist. I'm a long way from that. I'm a dope artist, but I'm not that.
Mm-hmm.
So my skills suffered, but I think what I gained was, first of all, going back to just the whole engineering aspect and understanding how systems work. I got that with engineering. Like, you can't just like, my mind automatically works that way because I understand systems, right? But getting out of engineering, co-founding a community organization in town called Common Ground Montgomery. I did that for about 7 years. I'm sorry, 12 years. I don't know why I said 7. I did that for about 12 years. So I got my nonprofit, I got my community experience from that. I got my activism experience from that. I also understood organizational leadership and structure. I got that from working with that nonprofit for 12 years. But coming to a point where I now read, this sense of art has been reignited and I'm getting back into it, my activism mindset realized, okay, everyone ain't getting the same opportunities. my network, it's a little bit larger than a lot of these folks, right? And so because I'm working for this other organization, and I have my database is a little bigger. I'm selling art with no problem, and I'm selling it to the point, bro. What I could have actually lived off of it full time at this point, as a new artist, and that's because of my relational capital with people in the city and outside of the city. And so I think this path that I took, just doing engineering, being an engineering supervisor at UPS and managing all of these people, leaving that, doing Common Ground for 12 years, managing people, managing systems, having compassion for the community, understanding matters of justice and mercy. You know what I'm saying? Just that whole social justice, compassion, justice, advocacy work. I didn't have that automatically. I think the activism has always been there because of the music that I listen to, but and just my faith background. You know what I'm saying? Just understanding who the Lord is and the compassion that He shows for us as a people, and the love that He has for us for people, the love and the mercy, and also having an opportunity to take that and live that out in the community. I think I needed all of those components that got me to where I am at the King's Canvas today. King's Canvas wouldn't exist without all of that.
And what you just said is exactly why I never question the process of becoming what it is, whatever goal I set out to obtain, because everything you go through, it comes full circle when you finally get there. And it sounds like everything you went through, it came full circle. That's dope, man.
Yeah, it definitely did, bro. Yeah, man.
That's dope. So whenever I have entrepreneurs on the platform like yourself, I like to cover three things: the aha moment, action, and audacity. You pretty much already covered your aha moment as to what sparked the idea to create the King's Canvas, and in terms of you getting started, officially incorporated in 2018, that pretty much covers the action portion. So in terms of, the bridge between those two, between the aha moment and action, I believe is audacity. It takes audacity to step out there and not only have an idea, but to put action behind it. Who or what gave you that audacity to step out there and start the King's Canvas?
Oh, who or what? So you want me to, how deep you want me to go with that? You want me to name a person or events that took place? Or
man, the world is your oyster, Kevin. Cook, man.
I would say my mentor, Boyd Stevens, just being in those classes with the man, understanding, and at the time, we don't call it this anymore, but at the time he called it the lean canvas startup business method. I remember sitting in that class and Boyd saying, man, I don't like dealing with artists. He wasn't trying to be disrespectful. He's just a straight up dude. I was like, man, why is that? He's like, man, because artists don't make good business people. That was back in 2015, 16. Now he's saying the complete opposite. All he want to work with is artists now after dealing with me. And so after working with him, my art sales doubled. And that made me a believer in the business science that he taught. So as I began to think about the King's Canvas and what could potentially be the King's Canvas, we didn't have a name yet. I wanted to take this actual business science that he taught us and utilize it in order to start this nonprofit. And so the audacity came because I was able to take that and apply the same principles that I had used to increase my art. For me, I was able to utilize that same information to create something that would not only benefit me, but that would benefit people, our city, and I would even dare to say our nation. And I say our nation because I've been speaking about these principles all around. I'm gonna be in Mobile this weekend talking about community development. I was in North Carolina a couple of weeks ago. I got hit up last week. Somebody asked me to go to Puerto Rico to talk about the King's Canvas. You know what I'm saying? And so it's making a powerful impact. And so I think that was my moment where I was like, yo, I'm about to step out. But also being a Black man, to think that I can be a Black man in Montgomery, Alabama, that can have enough relational capital to raise enough financial capital from a nonprofit standpoint when you don't really like asking nobody for money, when you don't like begging for money, if
Right.
that's what we want to call it, to think that I can do this full time, hire a full time administrator, and to pay her more than what she was getting paid on her last job because I was the one who hired her on her last job.
Wow.
But to also have a bookkeeper that we on contract with. I got a chance to go to Valiant Cross Academy today, doing a site visit for one of my artists that we paying to teach an art class over there. You understand what I'm saying? But to be
Hmm.
an African American male of Montgomery, uh, but to have an organization where I get to do this full time and not have to work a full time job and pour whatever I have left into this job and figure out how my family's gonna fit in it. You know, the audacity to think that that can actually happen. And I quit a job to do this.
Yes, sir. Hey, that
Yeah,
takes a lot of audacity. It takes a lot of courage to quit the
right.
9 to 5 to do what you do full time. So what is that like what's a day in the life of a full-time entrepreneur like?
Uh, for me, it's different, man. People ask me that question all the time. They say, I want to shout at you because I just want to know what the normal day is in the life of the King's campus. I'm like, yo, ain't no normal day. Every day looks different. Like, I may be fundraising one day. I may be at a coffee shop one day doing administrative work on my computer, but I'm at that coffee shop because I'm using this as an opportunity to not only write these grants that I'm doing or to send out these few emails that I have to send out, but if I'm sitting there for 3 or 4 hours, I'm at least see 15 to 20 people that I want to see because all of us frequent this place. So I use that as an opportunity to build a relationship. It looks like me being at the studio with people saying, "Hey, I'm at the studio. I'm about to do some artwork. Why don't y'all come up?" They think we just hanging out, but for me, I'm intentionally um, employing a community building, principle right now. And so people are meeting one another. They're getting connected. We building on one another, on a relationship that we have, that we have for one another. It may be me, like today I had to get away, so I was at the library writing a grant. I was writing um, working on my presentation that I have to do. But sometimes it's me. I was on the phone with an artist yesterday, and we going over mural designs because we're about to do a mural for Ed Farm at Brubaker Middle.
Okay.
Um, it's me taking pictures on the side of, taking pictures of the side of buildings because we're about to do a mural for another organization downtown. It's every day is different, man. I'm either doing administrative work, community building, uh, meet new people, to build relationships, or fundraising, or I'm trying to provide art opportunities for, artists within the city.
Hey, sound dose to me is like a surprise and every day, man. It's like Cracker Jack
It
box.
is.
Every day you got surprise.
It is,
So
man. It's exciting. Some days are more exciting than others. Like this week is a pretty crazy week, you know.
mhm.
But when I get to that space Thursday, where we're gonna actually be at that conference, and I'm gonna be teaching, I'm looking forward to actually standing up there in front of a lot of people in my hometown, Mobile.
Yes, sir. That's dope, man. So was your last employer were they supportive of you when you decided to jump out there and go full-time entrepreneur, or did you tell them or did you just leave?
No, no, no. I told them because I was a
Hmm.
part of the start of that organization. I just
Okay.
couldn't up and leave. But it was time. Yeah, and they were definitely supportive. Um, they were supportive in a sense where they understood why I was leaving, why I had to go. Some would have probably wanted me to stay. But at the time, it was just time, man. After 12 years, you train people and you move on, and you not only want to grow, but you want to, be able to continuously live out your purpose.
Yes, sir. Much respect, man. I definitely understand that. It was just time. It was hey, and good stuff that they were supportive of you, and that's all you can ask for. Hey, I've
Yep.
done everything I'm supposed to do here, and just and
Yep.
just and just based on your personality and just hearing with the passion you speak with, I'm pretty sure you left that place better than you found it.
Well, I don't know about that.
Ah.
I think, I mean, sometimes I'm like, okay, I wish I could have done more. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? But I think at that time, you reach burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just have to regroup and you need to change the scenery, man. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you get to the point where it's like, hey, man, it's nothing else more that I can contribute. I don't have anything left to contribute. And so that's where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And it came, man, honestly, just to be honest with you, I was like, yo, I can keep getting this paycheck because I'm the number two dude,
Mm-hmm.
or I can leave and free these funds up to continuously have these children to be invested in. And, hopefully that money could, transition to some of these staff who need raises.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm done here. I don't have anything left to give,
Much
you know.
respect, and that's a great place to
Yeah,
be, man. I mean, just to know
right.
you gave everything you had, like you left no tables
Right.
unturned, you left everything out there on the field. That's dope.
Right. Definitely, man. And I'm doing that for the Kings canvas, man. I don't plan. I'm 44. Do I see
Mm-hmm.
myself doing this at 60? No. Realistically, what's gonna happen after I leave?
Mm-hmm.
Am I just gonna up and leave? What happened to the King's Canvas? What happened to his donors? What am I gonna do afterwards? I already know what I want to do afterwards. But
Mm-hmm.
the question is, how do we, especially as Black entrepreneurs or Black nonprofit leaders, set up our entities in a way where we can have an effective succession plan um, that doesn't necessarily depend on us having to constantly be the face of it, right? I was working for an organization one time, and one of the board members was complaining about the head guy. I was like, yo, this seems like this is a personality driven thing. But I was like, yo, what grassroots organization wasn't personality driven, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know an organization that's existed for 50 to 100 years, but we weren't there when they started. We don't know who the initial founder was and all of the things that they had to go through in order to build a credibility to the point where it can even last 50 to 100 years now. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
sir.
for me, um, yeah, anyway.
Oh no, it's all good. I definitely understand what you're saying. Pretty much, you just want to leave a blueprint so you
Yeah,
pretty much you can be replaced. Like you don't want to do that
right.
until you're 60. I respect that.
Absolutely.
That's how
And,
you
I,
do
and I'm working on that
business.
right now.
Like that's how you
Yeah,
do it, man. Like pretty much you get it to a place where you can replace yourself.
right. That's what I would love to see one day.
Absolutely. So in terms of the next portion is talk about vision. I know the King's Canvas has done great things and great things are coming down the pipeline. What are your short term and long term goals for the business?
Short term goals is simple. I don't know. I don't think you've ever been out there, right? So we saw around this time last year, we were completing a stage that's now our performing arts area. 3 months before that, we completed a deck in the front, and that's been like a very, very rich space for community building and fellowship. But man, our current studio, man, we on top of one another, man. We are cluttered. We literally knocking over people's paintings, and people's artwork have gotten damaged. It's a good problem to have in a sense where it's really being utilized. But in the rear of our building, there's a much larger space. It's a lot more spacious. We're about to start renovating that to become our new space. And so we're going to move all of our artists in the back so we can kind of it can be more conducive to create back there, and we won't be on top of each other like we are now. And so right now, this is all short term. After that's done, what's our current space is going to become a gallery. It's going to become an art gallery because we have creatives and we need a space to have revolving art shows to constantly display people work, right? The long term, I'm thinking about the long term sustainability of the King's Canvas and what's next. We also need a gift shop. There's a space in between the proposed studio and the current studio. That's the future gallery. There's a little space in between. And I don't know if you ever been to Studio B in New Orleans, but you walk in this small gift shop that's heated and cool. Then that's like 3 warehouses full of just murals and artwork done by this guy named Mike. Um, and it's amazing how they had a gift shop set up. But I saw that years ago going to New Orleans to Essence, and I've always said, man, if I have a gift shop, I kind of want to pattern after this. So that's what we're doing, especially since our area has become a tourism attraction. We want to capitalize off of that, man. People always want to buy our T-shirts. They always want to buy prints if they can't afford the original. Tourists, they can't take back big 24 by 36 paintings. Sometimes they buy them and they trust that you will ship it to them. But sometimes they want a piece of art that they can actually put in their book bag or their purse and head back on the plane with them. You understand what I'm saying? We sell a lot of that. And so for us, long term is creating a revenue stream that account for a certain portion of our budget, so we won't have to raise as much money and be reliant upon that. Because when that happens, and when we're making money, instead of having to constantly onboard donors, it gives us more creative freedom to not only do what we do, but it creates long-term sustainability, just for our staff and our budget.
Okay, powerful goals, man, both short term and long term. Nah, man, hey, man, you over there cook? Man, it's all good, man. Hey, that's what it's all about, man. Just like I said, it's just all about highlighting that greatness, man, and like you just like explaining everything and those goals that you got set. I have no doubt they'll come to fruition.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So as we wrap up the podcast, I want to ask $1 million question. I started this podcast to highlight the greatness of Montgomery, whether you were born here or lived here for a significant period of your life, college, military, what have you. You've been to Montgomery, home. Montgomery has been home for you for 21 years. So I want to ask you, what do you appreciate the most about the Gump?
Oh, man, I would say the community, man. Just the people. I've always said, man, if it had not been for the people and the relationships I've built here, I wouldn't have dared stayed in Montgomery. Now my experience is a lot different, of course, but it's still the same answer as it was when I first moved here. And the people who I started out here with, a lot of them have moved on. A lot of them live in different states now, and we all keep in contact. But I've been able, my wife and I, we've been able to build a lot of good relationships here, man. And for me, I think that's what it is about Montgomery. Just its rich history and the people that's here that we are able to constantly live in community with and build relationships with. And we've entered into a lot of partnerships with people where we've been able to make effective changes. People like Michelle Browder, people like Kalonji Gilchrist, and, Charles Lee. You know what I'm saying? The Arts Council has been, a huge support to us. And, I have some friends over there, some genuine people. So artists like Milton Madison, I can't name everyone, just too many people to name. So just the people, man, that's kind of that's what keep me going.
Yes, sir. Powerful stuff. So how can people connect with you, Kevin? What are your social media handles and website?
So people can connect with me by following The King's Canvas. You have to add the THE on the front of it. That's Instagram, Facebook, but we also on TikTok. That's The King's Canvas. We on Twitter, even though we don't tweet a whole lot. We on Twitter as Canvas MGM, CANVAS MGM. And obviously our website is thekingscanvas.org. So that's the best way to connect with us through all of our social media platforms, email address, and even on our website, there's a section if you want to email in to us, and I can call you back or something. I don't want to give my number out public.
Oh, no problem. Yes, sir. And of course, I'll put all of the information in the description of the episode. Hey, Kevin, thanks again for the conversation, man. I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. Good people. That concludes another dope episode of the Gumptown Podcast. In the meantime, in between time, y'all know what to do. Be blessed, be safe, but most importantly, have the audacity to be you. Go on. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate your time and your attention. Until next time.